Well, good morning, everyone. Thought we'd go ahead and get started. There may be some more people that come in a little bit later. This is just a continuing series of what we've been doing. We're not going to be stopping. We want to continue these chats every month. People, while we don't get huge crowds, the people that do come always tell me, you know, keep doing them. We enjoy them. We get a lot of good information. So we will. I'm just going to talk about a couple things, and then we'll open it up again for questions. Last month, we talked about the fact that we went out for what we call an RFI, Request for Information. This request for information was regarding our sewer project. And the request for information was nothing more than a document, I don't know, I'm going to say about 15 pages, and it explained our whole situation here in Lake Havasu City, how we ended up with our sewer project, how it was financed, the number of customers, the area that it covers, and we also described our water system. This document had one goal in mind, and that was give us your ideas on how we can lower sewer rates. And it went out across the country. We're to get final proposals in by October 26th. They are, I wouldn't say required, but it is suggested that they send letters of interest, and we have received quite a few letters of interest, and they're coming from Wall Street firms to engineering firms, you name it. So we're hopeful that solutions will come that will help us. One of the things that I made clear last time is that we did not give them any suggestions. We didn't want to do that. We want it to be wide open so that they can come to us and make whatever suggestions they want. So we don't know if they're going to talk about restructuring debt. We don't know if they're going to talk about privatization. We don't know what they're going to suggest, and some of the ideas may not be feasible for us. But we figured that since we were not making the progress we wanted with the state agencies, that it was time to look at other resources. So that's why we did it. Hopefully by this time next month, I'll be able to at least report to you some of the ideas. We will not have selected anybody by then, because once we get all the proposals, then we will go through those to figure out which ones we believe have the best solutions, and then you begin negotiating price, if you will, because there will be pieces of it that are going to be consulting, there are going to be pieces of it that are going to be financing, quite a few different moving parts, and all of them usually come with a fee. But if it lowers our rates over time, we're good with that. You know, I got an interesting question yesterday from a person that actually was the CEO of the hospital, new to town, and he wanted to get a little information on the sewer project and whatnot. And he asked a question a lot of people haven't asked me, and that is, well, if you're going to have growth to the north, how will that benefit the sewer project? Because once you have to put in all of those new sewer lines and add capacity, and we're back to where we were at. And the answer is no, actually it would improve the situation, because, and that's what I've been trying to get across to a lot of our citizens, is that if we pay this sewer off early or even on time, you're really going to do nothing but pay for the next guy, because we built in capacity. We built capacity in for those customers to show up, because back in 2001 they thought those customers would be here already, and they're not, because the Great Recession kind of put the kibosh to that. So what would happen is, as developers buy that property from Arizona State Trust lands, the developers would be required to put in all the lines to serve those homes. But we would have the capacity for our wastewater treatment facilities, to deal with that. Now, if there needs to be upgrades of some of the major pipelines, the developers would have to pay for that as well. But we really don't think that's going to be needed either. So every time we add a customer, it actually is beneficial because it's not costing taxpayers anything to add that customer. And right now, as I've said before, we got 4,000 acres to the north of us in our city limits that we believe would probably be developed within the next 10 to 20 years, somewhere in that time frame. Just some other more fun things. October is always a huge month for Lake Havasu City. We got, of course, the London Bridge Days parade is coming up. We have the Lucas drag boat races are next weekend. The World Jet Ski Finals are also next weekend. We're going to try to eventually get it so that they're on different weekends because if it's like last year, we'll sell out every hotel room in town. Every single one of them. The jet ski folks are already here practicing. You can see them down there. Let's see, the Havasu 95 Speedway opens their first race tomorrow. So that will be going on. And then there's just all kinds of different functions throughout the month. October, as you can see, is great weather. And so just about every event possible takes place in October and early November. We're pleased that Lucas is continuing their series. They haven't decided whether they'll come back in the spring. They just are having a hard time finding a period of time that there's little wind, because that's a killer for their race. And in addition, if the wind is in the wrong direction, it's really bad. So because it pushes against the boats and they flip, so they can't have that. So they may or may not come back in the spring, but we'll see. As far as some other things that we've talked about in the past, the Havasu 280 project, that's the partnership with Arizona State Parks to build a mainland launch ramp, is continuing. We hope to break ground in the spring, but again, we need an absolute commitment out of state parks before we do that. As Charlie and I have said before, we're not building a road to nowhere. We just won't do it. We're hopeful that they will show a financial commitment to make it happen, because it will trigger a very nice residential and commercial project providing jobs to our community. And let's see, the motorsports facility continues to move along. They're doing their engineering studies as we speak. They just, I think I might have had this last month, but we received a economic impact report that indicated it would create about 170 odd jobs, and that the annual economic impact to the city would be about $10 million. So that's, and that's, by the way, without any ancillary businesses to serve that track. So that would basically just be the track and some minor other stuff. They usually figure in the impact to retail stores and that sort of thing, but when I looked at the manufacturing piece, it was virtually zero. And we honestly believe that's where we're going to see the most bang for the buck, because those businesses will move here to serve those who are racing. And those are very good jobs, high-paying jobs, specialty industries that we would really love to have here. So with that, as just a brief opening, I'm going to open it up for
Mr. Mayor,
sure.
Before we open it up to the room, I just want to make the announcement that Bill and Marilyn Boyer are here, obviously, filming this. Bill and Marilyn volunteered their time for the City Cable TV channel, so that we can share this information with others who might want to tune in or go to the city's website and watch the video. They'll be able to do it in the comfort of their own home. Consequently, I have to notify you that there's a chance that you might your image might show up on TV. And if there's anybody in the room who's in the witness protection program or is a bank robber on the lam,
you're done.
Yeah. So
The room is empty.
yeah. If there's anybody who absolutely positively cannot have their image shown publicly on TV, please raise your hand so we know who you are.
Brown paper bag?
Okay, good. Yeah. So,
Can't blur out our faces.
Yes, sir.
Mark, yeah, pixelite. Mark, is there any progress on getting any of our HERF funds back from the state of Arizona?
No,
Nothing at all.
none. And in fact, I think it will be, they committed to another, well, backing up, they've been taking about 120 million a year. Last year, they did give us 30 million bucks of the 120 that they're taking.
Havasu or Mojave County?
The
That's
state,
state.
statewide.
Statewide?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll get only a couple 100,000 of that. So they, instead of stealing 120 million, they only stole 75% of 120 million. And they're committed to give us another 30 million of our money back this year, but I think that's going to be a tough one for them because, as you know, the Supreme Court ruled that they owed the school districts across the state $317 million, and they're going to have probably another deficit in the tune of $600 million. So there's almost $1 billion that they're going to be running short this year. So we've already started talking to our legislators about leaving not just HERF alone, because we figure they're going to take that, but what's known as state shared revenue. And state shared revenue is what cities and towns and counties receive as part of the overall state income tax, state sales tax, DMV fees, and this was an agreement that cities, towns, counties made with the state back in the 70s, with the idea that cities and towns and counties can't create their own income tax like they do back east, and instead we'll just share the revenue with you and make the system a lot simpler for everybody, which was fine, but it's every year it's a challenge. Nobody's here from back in the 70s. If you know, quite honestly, if that system is attacked, we aren't afraid to go to the courts. So, and we have done that in the past, and we've been upheld. But there's always ways to try to find those dollars. They're trying to balance their budget. I get that. But when they use the money that belongs to us to balance their budget, well, then we have to take monies from locally and not repair something or build something or compensate for something, and it becomes quite difficult. But so we'll see. I think it's going to be an interesting year for the legislators, a very interesting year. Dean.
Mark, the other day there was an announcement in the paper about state parks expanding cattail.
Mm-hmm.
And have you heard anything about whether that might have an impact on the 280?
That's a great question, because the moment I read it and I walked into Charlie's office and I said, I wonder if this is going to impact the 280 project. You know, it's interesting. They didn't mention anything to us about what they were doing down at Sandpoint and Cattail. Not a word.
I'm sorry.
They continue to tell us that we're the #1 priority.
Right.
But then we saw that, and it made me wonder. Yes, sir.
Now that it looks like I-11 is going to be approved, has the city approached ADOT about trying to build a road from like the south side of Lake Havasu here over to the Wickiup area to link up with 93 to maybe get a road coming direct from that new expressway?
Yeah, we haven't. And I-11, I think there's a push to have an I-11, but there isn't any money. It's $20 billion project, I believe that's the number, and they don't have the money to build it. Right now, ADOT is going around. They're not allowed to lobby for money because they're a state agency. But they go around talking about the importance of transportation to Arizona's economy, and I mean it's true. It's incredibly important, and they're doing that to hopefully find a way that private money will come in. But right now, I don't see I-11 being built for a couple decades. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But no, we haven't made a push because, first of all, I don't think even if they found the money to build I-11, then they definitely won't have the money to build another road from us over the mountains to 93. I don't know that I-11 would have a huge impact or detrimental impact to Lake Havasu City because 93 is already there, and so some of that travel is already occurring. And the trucks that need to go to Vegas never go through Havasu anyway. They're going from Phoenix or coming up from Mexico. They're going to take the 93, not the windy route through Baus or Quartzsite. So now we haven't pushed on that, but every time I've been to an ADOT meeting, they continually explain that they really want to build it, but there's no money to do it. Nothing. But if they can, it'll be an important corridor because a lot of the companies are right now courting a lot of the Mexican companies because that's a huge marketplace that's virtually untapped. And so they're trying to build up our ports and whatnot. And over time, I think it will be tapped. But again, that's going to be a very expensive project. Other questions? Wow, easy group this morning. Yes, sir.
Question. I heard rumors something about Site 6 and the building down there. What exactly is going on?
Well, not much. We are looking at the best use for Site 6. And at one point in time, we had some what I might call grandiose plans for it, but the fact of the matter is we only have 6 acres. And so if we're to have a new marina or an expanded marina or whatever, it means we're going to have to purchase land from Arizona State Trust Lands. And I think that's running $300,000-400,000 an acre right now.
Yes.
And so we said, well, that's going to be an expensive proposition. 10 acres, $3 million, $4 million bucks.
For parking.
What's that?
For parking.
Just for parking, right. So I think what we're going to do is we're looking at doing some changes down there, more of a small fishing kind of, I don't want to call it a village, but just where people locally primarily can use it. It wouldn't be big enough for some of the huge Bassmasters tournaments or whatnot. But we ultimately would like to see some improvements down there, including maybe a general store, a bait store, that sort of thing. We probably wouldn't do huge improvements because it's, one, you have to have the money to do it. Two, if you expand that launch ramp a little bit too much, one, it's a dangerous area because people coming around the lake. And if you now make it, I hate to say this, but if you make it even easier for big boats, it pushes out the people that are using it now. And so, which are the smaller boats, the people who like to fish and whatnot, and it's free. If we do a huge expansion, it can't be free. We have to pay for it.
I have, I'll tag on
Go
to
ahead.
that. Next week, I'll have my first look at a draft of a scope of work for a request for proposals that'll go out for design ideas on what we might be able to do with Site 6. So we're going to go out and look for professional consultants that can look at that site and give us ideas as to how we can maximize that site. But like the mayor said, we only have 6 acres out there. So I have asked my staff to number one, clear out that old building down there alongside the boat launch. It's not habitable, it's not safe, there's no water, there's no utilities to it. So I've asked them to, number one, clear all the junk out that's collected over the years, and that's been done. And I've also asked for an estimate as to what it would cost to remove that entire upper story of that old building and re-slab it and put a shade cover over it and make it a usable kind of a day use picnic type of area. That's one way that we might be able to at least maximize that space, make it usable, and with an eye towards making it more focused on fishing. We don't really have a fishing-oriented boating site in Lake Havasu City per se, and I think Site 6 would be a perfect application for that. So, but once we get this consultant selected, they may come back with some even better ideas. But for now, we're just kind of investigating how we can best utilize the space that we have available out there.
Has there been, that's one of our historic buildings to some extent, it's been around a long time. Has there been any consideration about trying to save it versus tearing part of it down or all of it? It is a block building.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, has there been any research into trying to save it?
No.
No thought?
It would have to be made safe. It would have to be virtually be rebuilt anyway. The flooring that's in there, the trusses that hold up the floor are rotted. It's not a habitable building, and to make it habitable, it would cost more than if we were to tear it down and rebuild the entire thing. So that's a financial decision, that we haven't really considered, quite frankly. And its historic value, I don't know. Did Lincoln sleep there or something? I don't know of its historical significance or how we might be able to justify spending that kind of money to bring it back.
Well, if we haven't even thought about it, I would think that we want to at least think about it. We consider the bridge here, and I believe that building was here before the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
There's an awful lot of activity that went on in that area with the airport and all the rest of the things. I think all I'm thinking is there should be some discussion. Might not be feasible.
Mm-hmm.
But, how much history do we have left here from the very early beginnings of the town? And how Site 6 has affected the growth of this town over the years, and how I know the Coast Guard was there for a while, a number of other things. So.
Well, Site 6 been there a long, long time. It was an R&R place during the
Okay.
World War II.
So we might want to look at it before we just arbitrarily start tearing it apart. Got to put, you're talking about water and the rest of the things that it doesn't have in the building. If you put a new building in or you take part of it out, you're still going to need water and sewer no matter what. So that's an expense that's going to be there, no matter whether you save the building or not. So I'm not saying that I'm all for saving it, but yet at the same time, I think we need to really consider our history and what things kind of remind us of the past and how we got here.
Thank you.
Has the, how do I ask this? Is the idea of the Freedom Bridge, the second bridge to the island, is that still on the table at all?
Yes and no. Again, it's a matter of dollars and cents. As development continues to take place on the island, I think the need for a second bridge is created. What we would prefer to see, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, would be for a company to come in, build it, and have a toll on that bridge, so those who use it pay for it. And that over time it gets dedicated back to the city once the bridge is paid for, plus whatever profit element they want. To make that work, it's got to be very convenient to get from 95 onto that second bridge. Otherwise, people won't use it.
Are you talking federal dollars or state or city dollars?
I'm talking private dollars.
Private dollars only?
Right, because before the recession, we were getting phone calls of companies interested. They were asking for traffic counts, all the rest of it. What is it? So that they could figure out, well, what kind of toll would it be? How quickly would we pay ourselves back? Whatever. Once the bad economy hit, those calls stopped. In fact, one person was bugging me constantly, and I sent information, and it didn't. And once the bad economy hit, I never heard from them again. That was the end of it. So that's the only way I believe it's going to be built. We could go after federal dollars and whatnot, but the likelihood of receiving it is not very high. The state, no way. So I really believe it's going to have to be some sort of privatized bridge. And then what, there's been a lot of talk about, well, maybe what you have is one way on, two ways off, all kinds of different things. But the long and the short of it, I think that people will use it if it's convenient. More likely than not, the people that are living on the island or locals, they'll probably continue to use the London Bridge. But those who want to get to the marina or whatever quickly that are visitors, they would like to go straight across, be able to do it instead of waiting for a mile-long line across London Bridge as it is now. So if you make it convenient, it'll work. And but we are going to have to do something because more and more development is taking place on the island. So, Jim.
We can't go too many months without finding out about the English Village and what's happening down there. And I know it's an ongoing thing and the economy and everything, but everybody always wants to know, well, what's happening? Nothing new, I guess.
Maybe. I'm being cautious. They did come to see us a couple of weeks ago. They're exploring some alternatives. I can tell you that the original concept they had of the 3 towers is off the table. Yeah, that it's, because then they were going to have to have underground parking. They were talking about creating digging out some of their land, and they just decided that was too much to bite off. So that is off the table, and they are looking at other alternatives. They asked us to hold off discussing those for a couple of months until, and rightfully so. They said, look, we brought a plan last time with the idea we were going to build it. So until we know what's really going to happen, we really don't want to advertise it because we disappointed people once. We don't want to do it again. So that was pretty good of them. So.
With the amount of building going on in the town and that now, do you foresee any chance of some commercial air service out of this airport up to either Vegas or Phoenix?
Well, right now they're trying to get a grant for.
We didn't get it.
We didn't get it. Okay, well, so much for that. for what I would call a small charter service, but apparently we didn't get the grant.
Found out yesterday.
Oh, okay. Answer your question, I don't believe we will get commercial air service until several things happen. Number one, ASU grows considerably, combined with a motorsports facility that's going to create business demand. Without business demand, look, what I would call, one-off taking flights here and there, that's why Mesa couldn't survive, even with a $500,000 subsidy. Bullhead City's been trying to get an airline now for 8 years. And they get this close, and then they get told, nah, you just don't have the demand. Because we even helped, we supported them getting an airline. We wrote letters of support and whatnot. Even with all of that, the airlines didn't believe that there was enough of a Tri-City market so that they could actually make a profit. So until we see more of a business demand, and I think if the mall fully develops, that will help as well. I just don't see it, because they need to they need to put butts in those seats, and usually the way you do it is through business. To recreational or vacationers or people who just want to get away for a little while, that demand is not high enough for them to make a profit. So ASU continues to develop. We have twice the enrollment as when they started, and they anticipate they're making some additional investments, and so they're expanding their majors. So they're moving along. Steve.
In the wayfinding project, there's signs for the highway to designate people to the downtown area and the ASU. Do you feel, the downtown's been there 50 years and we've never had that. Do you feel that that could be a good economic impact on the downtown
That's a good question. I guess I'll answer it this way. In November, they're going to be having the citizen outreach program regarding wayfinding. It's been without a doubt, a controversial issue. It's more than just signs. I know people think of them as $500,000 of signs, but it is more than just signs. It's really it's signs, beautification, economic development, all of those things. I had asked for an economic impact so that I could determine what the return on investment would be and the length of time. And Doug Traub worked hard in trying to provide some of that information, but honestly, most of it is just best guess, because you can't find a town that before wayfinding, here's what the economics were, and then decided to measure their economics after wayfinding. You can't find those statistics to say, wow, it made a huge difference. So I don't know what the economic impact. I think it's important that we have a sign that says where ASU is at. ASU is willing to pay for that sign.
Well, the state, this is like the first time the state has allowed the city to do that. So maybe we could be a good example to do.
And I'll tag on here. People often accuse the mayor and I of being too like-minded, and this is one topic where we kind of part ways a little bit, because he looks at the economics of it, purely economics of it, and frankly I see a lot of the aesthetics that go along with the wayfinding program and stylizing our signage throughout the community and designated the various districts and pointing people towards those districts. I think there's not just the tangible economics of it, there's the intangibles of just kind of raising the caliber of the community and how it looks to people who might be coming through for the very first time. And you're right, the ADOT historically has denied communities that have brought wayfinding programs forward to them. ADOT is very particular about the type, size, and style of signs that go up in the state right-of-way. And because of our tenacity, if you will, in approaching the Transportation Board, we were finally able to convince them that Lake Havasu City would be a perfect beta test case for wayfinding across the state, because SR 95 is really our main street. You can't get from one part of the city to the other part without accessing or needing SR 95 in some way, shape, or form. So we convinced them that that we have a special circumstance here and a perfect application for it, and that board has notified their staff that they are to work with Lake Havasu City in the wayfinding effort and make this a test case for the state. And Mark Clark, of our transportation engineer, has been working closely with ADOT in going through each of ADOT's rules that would need to be changed to allow to do what we want to do on the state highway. One of them is allowing for twice as many signs on the highway that would point people towards, say, the downtown district. Not just the one that the rules will allow now, but adding another one a little bit further up the road, so that you can give a little bit more lead time to somebody that's coming into town ostensibly for the first time and needs some additional guidance to find their way through town. So yeah, ADOT is I will say bending over backwards to accommodate Lake Havasu City in the wayfinding effort. It is budgeted. But I promised council when they budgeted it that we would do some public outreach and try and dispel some of the perceptions, the negativity that has kind of swirled around the wayfinding program, because it is a program. It's not just a package of signs that we're going to go out and throw up around town. There's a real science behind it, and there's a lot of work that's gone into it, and it's in my mind, it's worthwhile from a much broader aspect than just the economic benefit of it.
Wayfinding exists in Arizona. It just doesn't exist on Arizona highways. For instance, if any of you have gone to downtown Phoenix, wayfinding is there. Look at their signs. They're very uniform. They're nicer looking. And that was their attempt to make downtown a little bit more aesthetically pleasing.
User-friendly.
User-friendly. So those do exist in Arizona. It's just that ADOT's never allowed them on their highways. Yes.
Along that same line, has there been any progress on the Gateway Arch that over McCullough at Smoke Street?
I'll let Steve answer that. That's that's a Main Street Association project, not a city project.
Well, we're always fundraising and trying to. We just started our new year. Actually, I'm the president of the association this year, and we have a lot of things in store. We are working on an enhanced service district for the downtown area, and we're trying to generate money to take care of it.
So you're basically saying there hasn't been any progress because you don't have enough money yet?
Well, yeah, that's part of it.
Okay.
That's part of it. The New Year's Eve last year, we were really counting on a lot of support from the community for that, and that's where a lot of the money was going to go. So we're working on it. We haven't forgot it. I look at it every day. So
maybe you could explain what you're trying to do in terms of a revitalization district and how that's going to provide some funding.
You would be a better person to explain that more technically than I am. I mean, this is your program. I don't want to step in.
All right. Well, what Main Street is doing right now, the merchants and the landowners, they're exploring quite heavily what is known as a revitalization district. And in short, what it is that the landowners get together and the businesses get together and agree to tax themselves. Put the money in a pool and then use that money for a variety of things to make their district better. So for instance, maybe they'll, I'll just pick a number. Let's say they decide they want to raise a couple $100,000 a year in additional tax. That money stays right there in their district because it was their money. They could hire an executive director to then direct additional activities. They could use that money to build the arch. They could use that money to put new benches, trees, help some of the customers with new facades on their buildings, whatever they choose as a revitalization district to do. Probably one of the best known ones are the one in Tempe, Mill Avenue. Mill Avenue used to be just a terrible, terrible place. You didn't really want to be there. And they created a revitalization district. And now it's a very inviting, lively place to be. So they're looking at that now. They have hired a consultant to assist them with that. I know they're going to be having some meetings, I think, in the next couple of weeks.
October 14th.
October 14th, okay.
We're doing some workshops and a community outreach.
Right.
Basically, too. And it really is beneficial to the whole community. Because we can add a lot of services to what the city already gives us, but we can, add more and kind of take care of our own area.
Well, see, and that's why, I like the district because the landowners have agreed to manage their own destiny. They've agreed to say, look, we're going to put money together and we're going to control our own destiny and how we improve our area, because it may cost them money in the beginning, but if they're able to bring more customers down to downtown, then they benefit from that. So, and frankly, the whole city, in my view, benefits, because if you have a downtown that dies, the city dies. That's pretty clear across America. You look at some of the major cities that let their downtowns go, they spend billions of dollars bringing them back. And we don't want to do that.
Yeah, it's happened all across the country when the malls and the big box companies come in. And,
right. Go to the outskirts of town.
Yeah, and dries up to downtown, and it's been an ongoing thing across the country to revitalize the downtowns with art and new facades and the right mix of businesses, and so it's a science, but it's doable.
Yeah, and I know that David McCatlin, another project that's downtown that isn't quite finished yet, is the art project down there, and I know he's working on getting that done. He told me he hopes to have that done by the first of the year, so they're working on that. And it takes longer because these are all volunteer projects. This isn't something where the city's throwing money at. These are people in the community volunteering their time, their money, their effort to get it done. One of the projects we are working on right now downtown, you can probably see it, is that parking lot just off Mesquite. We are hoping to have that complete by the end of January. You're going to see trees, benches, a kid's splash pad. We're going to try to groom some of the Pima Wash area, some of those trees that look like bushes, not trees. We're going to actually try to make them look like trees. So when we're all said and done, that'll be some connectivity between those two areas. And then when we do have the large events downtown, there'll be a place to park. So we're excited about that, and we're getting closer.
That's the park I've been working on.
Right.
Events.
Right.
We're working hard in the downtown area, and we appreciate everything the city's done to help us.
Yeah, we actually tried to pass legislation last year to make it even easier to get this revitalization district, but it passed through the House and died in the Senate for politics that I don't even understand. But one of the Arizona laws says that to create the district that they originally wanted, you have to be in an area that's considered slum and blighted. And if you think about it, what business person wants to declare that their business is in a slum and blighted area? And so we went to the legislature and said, why would you want to wait for an area to become slum and blighted to improve it? Don't you want to improve it before it's slum and blighted? And that made sense to most of them. It got to the Senate and died. And we don't get it, but we're going to try it again this year. It may be too late to help them because they're going to go a different route, but it only makes sense to fix it. It'll help other communities.
We're going to pursue it again this year, and we have every expectation that it will. I think last year it became a political chip for somebody, and it got held in a Senate committee, and it was probably from political reasons, nothing having to do with whether it was a good bill or not. It was a good bill, and it received bipartisan support all the way up to the point to where it stopped. So that leads us to believe that it became a political
yes, it was
chip.
A trade-off, yeah.
So we're going to do it again this year, and I have expectation that the governor will sign it, and it will become law, and it will make it easier for areas like where the Red Onion is and all up and down the downtown district, or any other collection or commercial nodal area in the city could also benefit from that legislation and make it easier for them to come together, pool their funds, tax themselves, make improvements to improve that area, not just for themselves, but for the entire community.
Yes, sir.
If I can go back to the wayfaring again.
Sure.
I look in this room and I see most of us here really like analog signs, if I can have it.
Right.
But there's a whole other generation coming up here that those analog signs they don't even look at. They're on their their iPads, their iPhones, whatever, their Galaxies. And is there a digital portion to that wayfinding
Yes.
as well too?
Yes.
That can interact with them as well too.
Yes, and it is interesting because you're right. When I'm going somewhere, and if I know exactly where I want to go before I leave, I'll probably put it into my car's GPS. But when you show up in a new town, you don't know what to ask for. You're not really sure, so you rely on the signage that they have, Rotary Park or Sarah Park or whatever. And in addition, quite honestly, the laws are becoming more and more strict about being a distracted driver. So I don't know that signs are just going to go away. I hear a lot of people saying, oh, the new generations, it's just going to be all on their iPhone or whatever. Well, there was a law. I know there's several communities right now in Arizona that wants a law that prevents you even using them while you're driving your car. I personally don't feel the need to have that law because we already have a distracted driver's law. But so then signs become more important. And I will admit, when I go to a new town, I'm relying on signage. And one of the reasons that you'll hear about the wayfinding signs isn't to get directions to where you're going, it's to tell you what's available. And as somebody pointed out that they went to some small town, I guess it was in Santa Barbara, my hometown, yeah. And they had no idea there was a mission there, which surprises me. I thought everybody knew there was a mission in Santa Barbara. But they saw a sign directing them to the mission, decided to stay an extra night to go through the mission, spent money, blah, 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 blah. And that's part of what the wayfinding is letting people know that there's something available. I had one guy tell me that he had no idea that Rotary Park existed for 3 years after he lived here. Because you can't find a sign to Rotary Park. Nowhere.
I know this is just one of many, many examples, but if you're if you're going northbound and you're sitting at the Mesquite Light, there's a sign there that says London Bridge to the left, and then there's a sign there that says London Bridge Road. So if you're in a motorhome pulling a boat and you want to go to
Yeah.
Cruise, you know, you're going to turn down that street because you know it's on the other side of the London Bridge. Well, I mean, it's just wrong. And we really, this is, I mean, you know, you guys have been to towns where you want to find something and you keep getting turned around and you get aggravated. I really
Right.
get aggravated.
And
Yeah, London Bridge is hard to find.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm told by the visitor center that the second most asked question is, where's the London Bridge? And they're standing right underneath it.
Yeah.
The first one is, where's the nearest bathroom? But the second is, we can't find the London Bridge. Where is it? Right there. So, yeah.
And another benefit, and I'll get back to the aesthetics piece of it, you know, people who work with me know that I'm not a big fan of signs in the first place. I would rather take signs down than put up more signs. And so another benefit in the wayfinding program that I envision is that it presents a perfect opportunity to assess what people need to know where they are traveling through the community to get to where they might want to be. You know, the London Bridge or the boat ramps or the public beaches or just parking. Where now we have a collection of old, what I call relics of the past, which are old signs that went up as the community evolved over the last 50 years. And out on the island is a perfect example, those old broken down wooden signs and things that predate the city's incorporation. So we have this collection of old crummy signs that, frankly, I get really excited about the thought of being able to go out there and take down all those old ugly signs that may or may not point to something that, one, still exists or is the best way to get there, and take all that down and replace it with something that looks nice and it reflects a much more sophisticated community.
And you hit on something that I think is really important. We that live here know that if you're driving down the Cullen and you want to go here and there's no parking there, we know you can go around and usually there's some parking in the back.
Mm-hmm.
People that are new to town don't know that. They just go, oh well, and keep right on going.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the sign saying there is parking in the back or this way or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
it's just going to help the downtown and the businesses that we want to keep.
Yeah, I would encourage anybody who's in the least bit interested in knowing more about the wayfinding program to come to those public outreach meetings that we're going to have. The consultant that was hired will be there. We'll have all the maps. We'll have boards that have pictures and illustrations of what the signs are designed to look like and what the program is. And it's not just a map with where signs are going to go. There's a lot of thought. There's a science behind the placement of those signs, and they'll incorporate the they'll be more stylized and they'll just have a nicer, more sophisticated look to them than much of what we have out there now.
Yes.
Back when Bob Whalen was the mayor, he told me that Crazy Horse's lease was going to go away in 2015. So I saw in the paper that Sandpoint is going away. What's going on?
Most of those leases are expiring in 2015. Arizona's, but the one at Sandpoint is actually with state parks. Most of the ones on the island are Arizona state lands, and most of those are being renewed as far as I know. I know we helped Nautical get theirs renewed. We helped the marina get theirs renewed. And anybody that asked us on the island, we went down to down to state lands to get them renewed.
Okay, so Crazy Horse is not going to go away.
As far as I know, they never asked us at all to work with them. So I don't know what the status of their lease is unless you do.
It's my understanding that Crazy Horse has not approached state lands for a new lease, but I believe it's state land's intention to to not allow it to expire, but allow it to continue either on a year-by-year basis or in a much shorter span. Usually those leases go 25, sometimes 30 years. State Lands has not been granting, those long-term contracts like they have in the past. They're much shorter duration now, typically 10 years.
I understood that if you wanted to renew your lease and the nautical stepped in and did this in a period of under 10 years, that's okay. But if you let it go to more than 10 years, then the lease goes to bid.
It has to go to auction.
Right.
Correct.
You're exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and and who knows if anybody would bid on it. But for instance, the marina, the problem with, like on the marina, if they go, well, if we go out for a 25-year lease and it goes to bid and we lose, well, who gets to keep that property? We built all of those docks and whatever. And there's a lot of discussion about that.
It goes to, what's the right word, where you rate the value of it.
Appraisal?
Appraisal. It goes to that, and the winner has to buy the appraisal.
There's some discussion whether or not, it depends who you talk to on that one. But what ultimately happened was they decided to just go on a 10-year lease. So, and that gave them enough time to be able to make the improvements they want and be able to recoup their investment. So, because that's really the hard part for some of those properties, is that when they get short-term leases, they don't want to make any improvements because you don't have enough time to get your money back.
What makes the island special in that regard for a lot of those commercial users out there is that the leases that are expiring now were not leases with Arizona State Lands. They were leases with the Bureau of Reclamation of the federal government, because those were all part of the lands that were part of the exchange that came about after the Central Arizona project. And I won't try and interpret that here, but a lot of those leases that are expiring are not with state lands. Even though they're on state lands now, the leases are with the Bureau of Reclamation or the federal government. So when those leases expire, the new leases are with state lands, and they are in fact new leases. They aren't renewals. So they're new leases, and that's what triggers that auction component. Since it's a new lease, if it's for a longer period than 10 years, that has to go to auction because there may be others out there that want to compete for it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just got back, and so I haven't driven around, and maybe it's a non-issue, but there used to be a sign called on Main Street called the Poorhouse. And I've asked a lot of people, some of the business owners, why don't they take that terrible looking thing down? And they say the city won't let us. So I don't know. I mean, that's
That
the
sign's
perception
been gone for some
misinformation or
time.
It is gone.
Yeah, it's not there. It hasn't been there for some time. But I can't imagine the city would say no if somebody wanted to take down a sign, especially when the city manager hates
whatever.
signs.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, no, we don't. If somebody wants to take their sign down on their business,
I'm
who
good
are
with
we
that.
to say no? Yeah, we get blamed for a lot of things.
Drive around, yeah.
The frame is up there. It's still ugly. But
Judy.
I had a phone call about 2 weeks ago from someone after they read an article in the paper from a client who was questioning me as the president of the Realtor Association, so it really isn't my purview, about the use of Rotary for exercise, for fitness. And so they were saying, well, how can this be? Well, it's not a private property issue, which affects the Lake Havasu Association of Realtors. But I'm asking you on behalf of this client that called, and I know there's some city council folks here, where are we with that? And I know that the Parks Advisory Board had a meeting, but I'd just like to hear your thoughts on what's happening.
Actually, that's a great question, because the real issue isn't fitness in the park. You can go to the park right now and walk the trail, do the exercises, whatever. The issue is, do you allow commercial activity in the park. For those of you who were here 6, 7 years ago, you'll remember the shoreline vendors. And there was 1 or 2 in the beginning, nobody complained. Then there was 7, then there was 12, then there was 15, and everybody complained that they couldn't even use the beach because all the shoreline vendors were there and using the park as their base to sell product, whatever. Okay, well, we put a stop to all of that, and now over time we've got fitness, and there are boot camps going through not just Rotary, all the parks. And so then it came up, well, do they have insurance? Do they have a business license? And in some cases, the answer was no to both questions. In some cases, they did. But then the real question is, well, are parks, is that the reason we have parks, is to allow people to run a business out of taxpayer properties and create a year-long business inside the park. So you think, well, you know, how much room can fitness take? You know, and why don't you just let people do fitness classes for a fee, put them at the old bowl if you want, the Rotary Park. And there's an argument for that, but then I got a call one time when I was on the radio. And the person said, well, wait a minute, if you're going to let them use a particular part of the park to have that commercial activity, well, I'm running out of space at my auto service place, so I would like to have a couple of spaces in the parking lot so I can do oil changes. And yep, that's an extreme, but it sure hits home. So that's where I think that's the dilemma that the Parks and Rec board is dealing with right now, because there was one idea, well, we'll just charge them $500 a year. Some would say that's really expensive. I personally think that's incredibly cheap to run an entire business for $500 in a year. Then you say, well, why don't you restrict it to 2 or 3 and you auction it out? But it's really, where do you stop? Do you say, well, we're only going to allow healthy, quote unquote, healthy activities at parks and you can charge a fee? Well, then I'm going to come along and say, I sell health food and I'd like to start vending at all the parks. Or, you know what, I have a healthy activity called being a basketball coach. And so I would like to take over the basketball courts at the parks to have basketball camps for fee and drive out everybody that's just using it for fun. So that's really where it's at, and that's going, I don't know where Parks and Rec's going to come out on the whole thing, but it really has nothing to do with fitness. It has everything to do with what commercial activities do you allow in parks, if any. And the last time this issue came up, we said none. Because once you allow one, then you're pretty much going to have to allow others. Yes, sir.
Along those lines, we're making money from Lucas Oil and shutting down the parks and different things like that.
Right.
That's opened up a can of worms, I think.
Actually, it hasn't, because, see, the activities I just described are year-long, where we always have allowed special permits for the use, all cities do, special permits for a temporary use of
It's a special event.
For a special event at a public park or whatever.
So these vendors then, or whatever you want to call them, could go for a temporary permit.
Very
to have their
temporary.
exercise classes.
No, they don't want it temporary. They want it all year long.
But they could.
If they wanted to
For
do it
temporary.
once or twice a year for a couple of days, yeah, they could. They would have to apply, but that's not what they want.
Okay. Well,
And even with a
you
special.
open up a can
Yeah.
of worms when
Yeah.
you start charging or shutting down streets and parks and all the rest of it. And then the big money people get to do their activity, but yet the people that are just doing small businesses don't get to do their activity.
No, they do.
Even if they're, you know, a couple times a year, whatever. All I'm saying is, you know, we need to watch what we approve.
Our code allows for the occasional use, the way it is now. You can apply for a permit to use the park for your special activity. Come in, pay $40 for an application, fill it out, tell us what you want to do. That application, we have a process whereby it goes through the departments. It goes by the, you know, the operations people to determine whether or not you want to do is going to close a street and what demands it would put on that department. Same with police, fire, others. They all have an opportunity to look at what it is you want to do and whether or not there's other city services that you're going to be expected to pay for. So that everybody else that's not going to be participating in your activity isn't subsidizing your activity. But there's nothing in the code right now that provides for a permanent use. You can come in and do a special event or get a special use or even rent an entire park for $150 an hour. Right. The code does have that, does allow that now.
Right.
What happened to the recently approved hotel construction, new hotel? Did anything ever transpire with that, or did it go away?
Oh, on Sabino?
Yes.
It's not going to be built, as far as I know right now.
Oh.
Well, Mr. Santiago passed away. So it doesn't mean that they won't build it in the future, but for right now, with him passing away, I think they just put it on hold for a little while. Yes, sir.
Speaking of that, hotels on the island, wasn't there a hotel started and come to abrupt halt?
Yeah, there was one planned, and it seems like it gets planned every couple of years. I don't know if they're...
That was going to be a Holiday Inn.
Right.
And the developer, I don't know if they dissolved or what, but the construction was started. There was a slab out there. They had begun the actual construction process, and then it stopped. And after a period of about a year and a half, there wasn't any activity out there. And so I asked our planning staff to contact the owner, and the owner replied that, yeah, he wasn't going to build that hotel and wanted his impact fees back. And so I said, well, if you restore that property back to the original condition and get rid of that slab and all those other materials out there, then we'll give you your money back. And that's what happened. So it's been restored back to its original condition. It's there. It's zoned for that type of development, but at this point, I'm not aware of any proposals to build there.
Other questions? Go right ahead.
Going along with the wayfinding and the fact that we're having problems keeping transportation for folks in the town, I'm thinking, do we have designated districts that we try and, like the downtown or uptown district, the island district, the museum district, or whatever we want to call them? You know, we're broken up so much as a town. Is that going to be part of the wayfinding? You know, we really do need. I could see tourists and the Channel District. They don't know anything past our couple of stores we have in our little shopping center on McCulloch there. They don't have any way of getting there when they come up from wherever in their boat and what have you.
Well, let me address that, and then we'll talk a little bit about transit as well. But a couple of years ago, if you recall, we tried the idea of trolleys, got those trolleys for free, and the whole idea was to get people from the channel up to downtown and wherever they wanted to go. They weren't interested. Weren't interested at all. Didn't want to use them, didn't care. They wanted to stay down at the channel. That's why they came here. They wanted to be on the lake. Very, very few actually got on those trolleys and went someplace else. So we gave up on the whole idea. When it comes to transit, you know, I've heard in the past, well, why don't we not do wayfinding and put the money towards transit? Well, we could. So transit's fixed for 1 year. Every year, transit costs under the old program between $800,000 and $1 million a year. Your tax dollars that can't be used for anything else because we're serving about 300 regular riders. So what we decided to do was create a situation where we're going to make sure that those with disabilities and seniors can get to doctors and food appointments, whatever, Monday through Thursday, 8 to 2 o'clock. And then we're going to have a privatization of the rest of transit. And we are currently negotiating with some of the shuttle companies. I think there were 3 that put in proposals. And so what we'll do is we'll provide vouchers for those who income qualify. They'll get a $5 voucher to take whatever shuttle at any time, at any place they want to go. They will be responsible for any additional amount. So if it's a $6 shuttle ride, they've got a voucher for $5, and they're going to have to pay the extra $1 or a tip or whatever. That's up to them. But even with that system, you're looking at $350,000, $400,000 a year. That's so it's because we ended up going over 50,000 people, and so all of the normal federal grants that say a Bullhead City or a Kingman gets, we don't get anymore. Right? They're pretty much gone, and with the number of riders that we serve on a regular basis, that was, you know, our rides were costing a huge amount of money. And our city really isn't set up for a transit system. I hate to say it, but if you think about it, wherever you want to go in the city only takes a few minutes. And so let's say that I decide I'm going to ride the bus today instead of taking my car. Well, maybe if I'm in a metropolitan area, that makes sense. And in fact, I used to, when we lived close to San Francisco, I would take BART because it was faster to get there, even with the wait times, than using my car and dealing with traffic and the expense of gas and all the rest of it. In Lake Havasu City, by the time a bus picks me up, I could have been wherever I wanted to go. And so that's why people don't use it in Lake Havasu unless they absolutely have to. So what we're trying to do is make sure those people that do need to get to work or school or whatever, we're providing them a mechanism to do that. But it's not, you know, and people have said, I get a kick out of it because people come and say, you need to bring transit back the way it was. And I said, fine. How much do you want to spend? And almost always I'll get, well, I think, you know, a couple, 300,000 would be just about right. And I said, we're spending 3 times that amount. And they go, oh my goodness, you need to do something about transit, you know? And that's exactly where we're at. I mean, we'll spend as much as the community wants us to spend on it. We could do a $2 million system, get anybody where they want to go. It won't add to we won't get any new riders, but it will cost. And we can make it really nice, but will it be productive? Probably not.
Has anyone thought of going to the medical community and asking them for some help with, because it seems like that's the biggest complaint is people can't get to their doctors.
But they can. Right now, under the system that we've got, as a senior, I can, not only do I not have to wait for a bus out at a bus stop, we'll come pick you up. 8 to 2, Monday through Thursday, we'll pick you up and we'll take you home.
Even if you're in a wheelchair.
Yeah. And so, and then if, let's say that as a senior, I also have, my income isn't very high, well, I can also use the voucher system. So I can expand where I want to go throughout the rest of the week at any time, night or day, and go anywhere I want to do it. We're trying to keep the door-to-door kind of thing to medical and food, simply because, again, of cost and making sure that people get the basic needs. But I'll be honest, it gets abused. They'll ask us to drop off by one of our local grocery stores. They don't go in that store. They're headed down to maybe one of the pubs or whatever. Yeah. Because, you know, when we pick them up, they don't have a lot of groceries in your hand. Dead giveaway.
You can tell where they've been.
Yeah, so, what it doesn't mean we're going to stop, because we still want to get the people that really need to get to doctor appointments. And if we find that we're able to expand it from, say, all 5 days to 8 to 5, we will do that. We're just trying to figure out if the demand is there. And because, as Charlie has said in the past, one thing we do know about transit, it won't be the same today as it will be 12 months from now, because we're going to measure all the rides, who takes them, why do they take them, where do they go, what time of day, and then we're going to try to redesign that system to fit that, so that we get people where they need to go most often. And we think that the voucher system is probably the best way to go, and that even has some of its issues, because you're going to see abuse with the vouchers, and we're trying to design a system to mitigate as much of the potential fraud as possible. Because for those of you who were here years ago, we used to have the gold coin, gold token system, and when we stopped those, and those gold tokens were meant for income qualified people, so they could get a ride on the bus, and people were selling them. That was their extra income. When we stopped the program and said you need to turn in your tokens, we had people with hundreds of them. They had a little inventory. When they needed money, they'd sell them. So we're going to design a system to, it won't get rid of all the fraud, but we're trying to lessen the amount, and because the more fraud there is, the more cost there is to the taxpayer. Other questions? How about a code enforcement update? I know that's been a hot topic over the last several months. Do we have our second guy now on board? Okay, yes. So we have our second guy on board. We are actually, what we're seeing is fewer and fewer complaints. We are working with them. There are some complaints that are very, very difficult to deal with. We're working through our code right now to make the code a little more strict as to what compliance might mean. We are trying to get a read from our community as to exactly what the people want. We're transitioning, as Charlie has pointed out, as our community has developed and we have more and more infill of homes, and we're now living closer and closer together. People have a different idea of what things should be done. I mean, years ago, you would hardly ever get a complaint about a boat trailer sitting in an empty lot or a boat or whatever, and now we get lots of complaints about that, even though they're operable or whatever. So we're just trying to make sure that we get it right. Code enforcement changes over time. It's always going to continue to do that. But we have gotten through, we get a report every council meeting, and the numbers continue to go down. There's going, like I said, there's going to be some that we push very hard on, and code enforcement also is, we get a lot of calls when two neighbors can't get along. That's what they use is code enforcement to go after their neighbor. I know of one, I can't tell you how many calls we have received, and we cannot find a single violation. And in fact, the home that we go to that's supposed to have all these violations is nicer than the home of the person complaining. Yeah. Other questions? Dean?
Just to follow up on that a little bit.
Sure.
When there are people who are complained about for, say, having weeds in their yard or something like that, if we find that these folks are elderly or unable to do that kind of a thing themselves, then there are volunteer groups around town that will
That's a great
pitch
point.
in and help out. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that as part of code enforcement, Councilmember Barlow is correct. We are actually actively trying to put together even more volunteers. So because, especially in the springtime, we get a lot of complaints about weeds, empty lots, whatever. And assuming we can get permission to go onto that property, we'll have volunteers that will clear the weeds and what. There is no violation to have a weed. In the past, we've had people that have wanted weed ordinances that you had to deal with your weeds on your yard. But we had so many people that either were elderly and not able to clear their weeds, and in addition could not afford to pay somebody to do it. And so we never got to a weed ordinance, but I think what Mr. Barlow is pointing out, having the volunteers is probably the best solution of all. You know, we have a lot of volunteers in this town. For those of you that read in the paper last weekend, we had a beach cleanup. It was a beach called That Beach. Literally, it's called That Beach. I don't know, 60, 70 or so showed up. Did a good job cleaning it all up, and that beach is really nice now, very nice. The biggest issue with the beach is that there aren't any facilities there, and so we're trying to figure out how we can accommodate that. But we are putting trash receptacles down there so that at least that part of it stays clean. We're actually going to groom that beach periodically, because one of the things that we've all decided as a council is that our beaches should be treated like parks, because we use them, visitors use them. We need to treat those beaches as our parks. So our Parks and Rec people now, as part of their regular daily routine, we have a groomer that goes through Rotary. They'll use it at that beach. I don't know if they're using it at London Bridge Beach at all.
Mm-hmm.
Are they? Okay. And that groomer's been a great investment, because it gets out all the, cigarette butts and pieces of paper, cans, rocks, whatever. And I know the people that have used the beaches. In fact, we were told yesterday by the new CEO of the hospital, he said one of the things I really love about Havasu being brand new is Rotary is beautiful, and those beaches are terrific. I mean, how could anybody complain about them? Can't. They're nice. So.
Yeah, we have 2 beach cleaning machines now. We have a big one that we tow behind a tractor that we can go pretty quick, and on the big beaches like at Rotary, we can clean that big beach pretty rapidly with that big cleaner. And then we have a smaller one that's about the size of this big table that's actually run by remote control. and it runs a little slower, but you can maneuver it around trees, and that's the one we use at London Bridge Beach and in some of the areas like around the volleyball courts and such, where you have to have more maneuverability. So we have actually 2 machines now.
And one of the things we found when we were doing the beaches is the amount of glass. I mean, the people go down there, the kids go down there. We picked up so much glass down there.
Yeah.
The trash was awful, but the glass was horrible.
Yeah.
So it's, it was a great feeling to know that we made that beach safe for kids.
Yep.
That beach and Lottie Beach and some of the other ones are state trust land.
Yep.
The city didn't have any problem with trust letting us.
We
work
got
on it.
permission.
Yeah.
We asked for permission, and they said absolutely. In fact, I had crews down there the entire week before with heavy machinery clearing the salt cedars and invasive species off of that property down there, and it made the beach much bigger, probably 2 or 3 times as big. And they were very appreciative of the fact that we were willing to do that. And if we were to contact Arizona State Trust Land Department and say we demand that you go down there and clean up your beach, they're not going to do that. Chances are they're going to go out there, put up some posts and a cable, and make it so people just can't go down there. And that doesn't serve the community. So we took a different approach and asked for permission and got it. And they appreciate the fact that we're down there making it nicer. At issue, though, is it's not a city beach. So it's from a cleaning up the asset piece of it, since it's not a city beach, it can be tough from a budgeting standpoint for me to take crews off of Rotary Park and send them out to that beach to use city resources on property that's not city property. But we've taken that on just as a general policy, like the mayor was saying. The beaches are an amenity for all of the people, and people using those beaches really don't care who holds the title to it. They just want to have access, and they want to be safe, and they want to have a nice place to recreate. So that's kind of our focus.
And that
on the
beach
beaches.
is used primarily by our citizens, because most other people don't even know where it's at. So.
Well, that's great. We're working on a coalition, I guess, or partnership. We're trying to get together with the VA and the county, some of the coyote and probation programs. So that's something that the city would look at, 'cause we need projects for them to do.
Oh, okay.
Get the vets to help mentor the teenagers and what have you. And we're talking with Havasu Wildlife Refuge, and I want to talk with Trust Land, because it's a little bit there. State parks, so that's something.
That's perfect application for
Yeah,
it.
sure.
Okay.
Great. Yes, sir.
Mark and Charlie, I think we'd all like to say thank you for you guys taking the time to bring us this information.
Oh,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome. You're welcome. Absolutely. Thank you. Did you still have a question? Go ahead.
Well, I mentioned this, I think, to Charlie and you both, but I'm working on and it's one of my projects I'm still working on, but a recycling trash can for up at the Springburg Mechanical Park, because there isn't any trash cans there. And hopefully that you guys will like it and approve it and everything, and maybe eventually I could have them up and down Main Street a little bit, because I don't really think we have any recycling program type in the town, do we? I mean, the parks and stuff, it's just one single trash can, isn't it?
We have
Yeah.
curbside recycling, but no, official recycling program in city parks and such.
Right.
When I was in Hawaii, I took a lot of pictures of recycling bins. They're everywhere there, And it's amazing how people really use them. I mean, I took the lids off and looked at them, and by God, there was cans and glass and trash. So I've been picking up so much stuff that on the park, they get out of there and just throw it. So I was thinking maybe if there was actual trash cans up there, that they might start using it more.
I think you would see a much stronger focus on recycling locally if we had a local recycling center. And we just don't. I don't know where the closest center is. I think maybe Vegas.
Well, I know Havasu Iron takes aluminum cans and
yeah, they do.
They smash them into big blocks
Yeah.
and stuff. And I started thinking, well, you know, because this is just part of that enhanced service district for the downtown, but you know, that would be something that we would do.
Might be a revenue source for
That's
Main
what
Street.
I'm thinking
Sure.
is, you know, if I could keep everyone else out of the aluminum.
You got to get there first.
Empty again.
But, yeah, I just thought, you know, it could help pick up a few bucks for the downtown to recycle, because after these events, you know, there's trash cans.
Yeah, good point.
Sure.
Anything to help build that arch.
You can make it out of aluminum
That's
cans.
the thought. That's the thought.
All right, any last questions?
Just one.
Sure.
You know, dogs are supposed to be on a leash in Rotary Park.
No, dogs can't be in Rotary
No
Park.
dogs in
period.
Rotary Park.
Well, I've seen a lot of them down there.
I know.
What do you think is the best way to handle this?
Well, you can call animal control. You can contact the police department. I wouldn't call 911, but there's not supposed to be any dogs at Rotary Park. That's our one dog-free park in the community. All the other parks, you can have a dog on a leash, but not Rotary.
Right.
I know people ignore that. And best we can do is just call animal control. They will respond.
All right, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.